Hello, beautiful, wonderful people. It is your girl, Simone Nicole, back at it again with another video. We're going to be doing a little more of spooky content, and that is why you are seeing this video today, which is my thoughts on Hulu's very new movie, Bad Hair. Now, before we get into the video, we of course have to do our subscriber shout out of the day. Today's subscriber shout out is going to go to Void Saint. Commented on my reacting to TikTok videos. They commented, "Hello, I love your videos. All throughout my life I have rejected my hair, but recently I have decided to try to nourish my natural hair. Your videos have been very helpful, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate your reviews. You have a great personality, and I wish you the best." Thank you so much to Void Saint for leaving such a sweet comment and for putting out a bit of positivity in the world. If you are new here, that is something that I push very much so on my channel. And if you would like to be my subscriber shout out in my next video, then first you have to be subscribed, and second you have to comment. And with all that being said, let's get into today's video. If you have not watched this movie, this is your spoiler alert warning, because I am about to ruin everything about the movie. So the flow of this video is going to go a quick synopsis of the entire movie, like just the Cliff Notes version, the most condensed version I can get it. Then we're going to talk about the movie elements, like the elements of the movie itself. Then we're gonna have a conversation about good hair versus bad hair. Then we're gonna wrap up by talking about, is this movie relevant? Let's start with the synopsis of the movie. I don't know how many people in my audience know this, but I did graduate with a degree in theater performance, so I look at movies through like a couple different lenses. The movie opens with Anna, our protagonist, and her sister Linda. Now, Linda is trying to convince her younger sister to put the creamy crack in her head, aka a relaxer. As she's taking it out, Anna is saying like, "Oh my goodness, it burns, it burns." And it turns out that Anna gets a severe chemical burn, which leaves a scar in the back of her head. After she gets the scar from the creamy crack, we fast forward to 1989, and that is where we stay in time. And Anna, as an adult, yeah, no one's checking for Anna. She's not made to be this huge character. She kind of lets people walk all over her. She works for a network that's kind of like similar to an MTV kind of feel. So as she's walking into her job, she runs into this man who like doesn't even care. Like, she's just a little blimp on his radar, and that man is actually her new boss. And she finds that out when she gets up to her floor and she gets into the meeting. In this meeting, her and her fellow coworkers find out that their current, I believe she's vice president, she might have been the president, who was a black woman, is now stepping down. And she gives a very vague diplomatic answer as to why she's stepping down. And they introduce the new people that will be running the company, which is the white man that she ran into downstairs, whose name is Grant. And then they introduce Zoya, who is Vanessa Williams. And for a moment there, we're all like, that's Vanessa Williams, yeah. Because that wig they got on her, ooh. That opening scene does not flatter Miss Vanessa very well. Personal opinion, network is dying. They're not making as much money. So they're deciding to move it into a new direction. During this first day, we also see that Anna has had a little fling with her coworker Julius. And he effectively breaks up with her, even though they were literally just messing around earlier that day, because he is seeing someone new. So Anna is really having an amazing day. Everyone is nervous now that new management is coming in, because with new management often comes firings and layoffs. Our protagonist Anna is very nervous that she is going to lose her job. We see a bunch of people packing up their stuff because they are indeed getting fired. So Anna is on pins and needles when she walks into Zoya's office, and one of her coworkers tells her like, "Hey, just a heads up, this is going to be an interview, so basically do your best." Anna gets in there and she explains that she came up with a lot of ideas, and one of their main segments she came up with, and that segment was taken by, of course, a man. She's basically been looked over for all of her ideas, and she presents this new idea for a segment that she has, and she has it spelled out and lined up, and it's very clear that Anna is very intelligent and very capable. Zoya says, "You know what? you could be my executive assistant, but you need to do something about that hair. She actually hands Anna a card to a particular salon. On the business card that they give her, she is told to ask for the Sandra special. There is a really, really big pop artist in the movie that's kind of like akin to a Janet Jackson, and that character is played by Miss Kelly Rowland, and she has this straight weave in her hair. Anna has a dinner with her parents that following evening, and her father, we quickly find out, who is played by fine Blair Underwood. Her father is giving very much so, used to be a Black Panther and is now like a professor. Like, that's the energy that he's giving. That's the vibe. They start to get into this book, and we realize that the book will be an important piece throughout the movie, but it's briefly mentioned in this opening scene. Anna is telling her stepmom or her adoptive mom, whoever she is, that she cannot afford to pay her rent. And that is something that we see a bit of, that her rent is due. She don't even have no money to pay her rent, even with her job now. So that is why this promotion is really important, because Anna broke, okay? So she gets the money, and all of us are thinking like, oh, she's just gonna hand that to her landlord. See, you'd be wrong, dear viewer. She runs to the salon that is recommended by her boss. The price to get a sew-in, including hair, is $450. The salon actually has a like crazy long wait list to even get an appointment. She actually breaks past the receptionist and goes directly to the stylist, who is played by Laverne Cox. You see how many names I'm dropping? This is such a star-studded cast, and I kind of don't know why, but the point is that Anna runs past the receptionist and makes this whole long impassioned speech.
Hi.
Denise?
Please, I just need a moment. You ever had a dream? One you'd be willing to do anything for?
Very few things are worth doing anything for, baby.
Virgie tells her, you know what? This is my good deed for the day. I'll squeeze you in. Virgie asks her if she's tender-headed. Anna says yes. And I would consider myself to be tender-headed, but Anna has taken it to a whole new level, to the point where she's crying during the braid down. Virgie is not phased, okay? Not phased at all. She braids her down, and then it's time to actually sew in the unit. And while she's sewing, the camera is zooming in to her scalp, and it looks as though she's drawing blood. So it gets to a point where Anna actually passes out. Passes out. Virgie wakes her up at the end, and she says, you're all done, and you're not the first one to pass out. And that's when we're like, what's really good? Anna looks in the mirror, and she is just mesmerized with herself. Before she leaves the salon, Sandra, the same pop star from all the videos, walks into the salon. So Kelly Rowland, and then her friend, I think they named him like Jeremy in the movie. It doesn't freaking matter. Usher, baby. Usher walks in. Why is Usher in this movie? Don't know. How many appearances does he make? Maybe 2, but here he is. She pays her $450. She leaves the salon. Next day she gets up, and it is like she goes to work, and as soon as she walks in the door, all of a sudden people are just looking at her with so much love and admiration, and her boss takes notice, and everything is just going better for Anna. She's sitting at her desk, and she cuts herself, and she goes to like go through her hair after she cuts herself, probably like to flip her hair off her shoulder, and her hair gets caught in the cut, and the hair is inside of the cut, and she has to physically pull it out like with force, because the hair has attached itself inside of the cut. And this is when we realize that we are in for a wild ride. Fast forward, we get to Anna's apartment. Anna is starting to unwind for the night, and she's about to get in the shower. Then her apartment door opens, and in comes the sleazy apartment manager. He's drunk, and he tries to rape Anna. So she stabs him with the box cutter, and then the hair takes over. The hair wraps itself up his arm into the stab wound and proceeds to drain him of all of his blood. But yeah, Anna just gets up and goes to work. Anna has taken on her role as Zora's executive assistant or executive producer, and they're in a meeting with all of her previous and current co-workers of the network. They were basically trying to say, like, look, the old way that we did things is no longer, we're moving forward with this new vision. And Zora specifically says, culture is dead. The name of the network is no longer Culture. It's now shortened to Cult. Anna goes home and her hair is starting to get really matted and not the greatest, like in a very exaggerated way. As she's trying to comb through her hair, she makes a face because she feels as though she started her period. So she goes in the bathroom to get a pad out of her cabinet. Child, the hair slips down into her underwear. Drinks the period blood. Anna says in the mirror to herself, that can never happen again, and the reflection basically is like, ha ha ha, sure. Anna gets all dressed up nice because there's like a gathering of everybody from the network. She is interrupted by her boss, Grant, the white man. Grant is saying how good of an idea he thinks that her new show concept is and how much behind it he is. And he says that, I think it's a great idea for Zora to host it. So Zora has stolen Anna's idea and has also made herself the host of the show that Anna has come up with. For the second time, Anna is getting played. Since Anna is so upset, she goes outside to smoke a cig because it's the 80s, man. And in typical ain't shit fashion, he comes up to Anna and he's all, I miss you. You were really the one. Blah, 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 blah. And what does Anna do? Goes back to his apartment, of course. They start to have the sex. Anna reaches over, gets a mask, puts it on Julius's face. The hair all comes down, wraps itself around him, and she stabs him and kills him. So another one bites the dust. So Anna gets up, gets dressed, darts out of the apartment. And this is where Anna's like, you know what? I think something's wrong here. I'm pretty sure something is wrong with this hair. She calls her sister to ask, like, hey, can you tell me again about this folk tale that is in Dad's book? So now we get the full story of this folktale. In this folktale, there is a slave that is walking on her plantation one day, and she sees this tree of moss, and she decides to make a wig out of said moss. But once she puts the wig on her head, she has an encounter with her slave master, and the moss from the wig murders him. Basically, it is said that the hair has an identity and a being of its own. The hair is actually the conduit in which witches implant themselves, so that when they get onto a host's head, they use them to do the things that they want to do. The witches inside of the moss, aka the weave, the hair, use that to get what they want, which is clearly to kill people. It was interesting before because when the sewing was getting put in and the scalp was bleeding, I was like, this is all in Anna's head. Like, this can't be real. But I realized that in witchcraft, there's such thing as a blood tie. So if you bind yourself to another human via blood to blood contact, you are now tied together like souls are tied together. At this point, Anna's like, you know what? I think I need to get this thing cut out of my hair. She goes to a regular black salon and she sits down to get her hair taken out, and her mentor, her old mentor out of all people, walks in. So she starts chatting with Edna and the couple other people in the salon, and Edna says something really interesting and I love it. She says, in a perfect world, a woman would be able to wear her hair in whatever the way she wants. And that hit me right here. But those were probably going to be the last words that Edna ever spoke, because when the stylist raised her scissors to the hair, oh, the hair wasn't having that. The hair killed everybody. And you know, this is where the movie, the killings I can't say that they just weren't that good. So boom, everybody in the salon, they all die. Her first thought is, oh my God, where's Zora? I have to go find her. Anna runs to the office to find Zora. And once she gets to the office, she finds one of her coworkers dead. And Zora basically is like, hey, so is your weave killing people too, or is that just me? Zora is like, you know what? It's just hair. Like, it's really not that serious. Like, we're insane. We can just cut it out. And Anna's like, I wouldn't really do that. So Zora tries to cut the hair out, and then the hair wraps itself around Zora's neck, pulls her up, boom, breaks her neck. She's dead. Anna runs out of the building, goes back home, wakes up the next day, and she's stressed out. She gets like a million calls from her coworkers, and she finds out that because no one can find Zora because she's dead, they need somebody to host the new show. So Anna gets her show. And let's keep in mind that every single time the hair kills somebody, it gets longer and thicker. So by this point, Anna is up on that set, up on that stage with 32 inches down her back. So while she's up on stage, Sandra actually comes up on stage, aka Kelly Rowland. Literally no point to this. And while they're up on stage, Anna looks out into the crowd and she sees Zora standing there. But how is that possible? Because Zora's dead, right? A few hours pass by and she swears that she sees Zora again. So she asks one of her coworkers, like, hey, have you seen Zora? And the coworker's like, no, I've been cleaning out her office this entire time. Girl, what are you talking about? In mid-sentence, a big thing of hair comes up, wraps itself around her neck, yanks her back. She's dead. And then we see Zora materialize out of the ground, and she is now a hair demon monster thing, completely possessed by the moss hair. Let's just keep this real short. Ciao. Everybody dies. Every single coworker she ever had. Remember Sister Soldier that they convinced to get the weave? Yeah, she gets possessed. She ends up killing the character who's supposed to be like our comic relief character. Yeah, everybody dies. And Anna is running around trying to figure out how to not die, and she eventually locks herself in this room. And when she gets on the ground, she looks underneath the desk and she sees there's a gun, and we're like, oh my God, how convenient. A gun in the workplace taped to the bottom of the desk. Amazing. She picks up the gun and she aims it at the glass that all of these like zombie, oh, keep in mind, people die and then they become like hair zombies. So all of these hair zombies are standing on the other side of the glass, and she aims the gun at the head zombie, Zora. And when she pulls the trigger, the gun just produces like a little flame. She realizes, oh my God, there's a sprinkler system in here in case of fires. So if I hold my gun lighter up to the sprinkler, the water will come on. Something that she was told at her very first appointment was that she was never ever allowed to get her hair wet. The sprinklers come on, the moss hair stuff freaks out and it's like screaming, and she's like cutting it off, and as she's cutting it off, the hair is bleeding, and I'm like, oh, so hair bleeds, cool. So she cuts basically the entire sewing out. Once the water dries up, she leaves the room and sees Zora and her band of hair zombies dead on the ground. That's kind of really it. We fast forward to Anna, who is now just wearing her hair under a scarf. She clearly has learned a lesson from all of this. She continues to read the folktale about this moss girl. Basically, we find out that Grant, remember the sole white man in the movie, owns the same place where the moss hair grows. The camera pans to see that the moss hair is literally all woven into the ground everywhere, and Grant is standing there in all of his white man glory whilst all of these black women walk past him in a very slave master-esque fashion. Basically, we put together in the end, he recommends for these people to go to this particular salon because he is providing this moss hair to that salon. So essentially, the white man is always in control, and it always goes back to the white man. And that's the movie. So let's talk probably the most jarring aspect of this movie, which is the actual elements of the movie. So the movie is considered to be a comedy horror movie, which is a type of movie that we have been seeing a little more now because of Jordan Peele and his impeccable execution of comedic horrors. And we see that in Get Out, and we also see a bit of that in Us as well. The reason why I emphasize that so much is because that genre is very hard to pull off, and I don't know if this movie pulled it off. There were so many different elements that came together to make me feel like it wasn't pulled off very well. I think that the acting for the most part was very good. I think that someone could look at this movie and feel as though there was a lot of overacting done, but I don't think so, simply because of the reality that the character is in and the reality that the character and the actor is forced to believe. I think that the main character, the actress, did a beautiful job at committing to the role, but I do think that there were moments when I did not believe her, and I believe it was because the movie did not have circumstances that you could buy into. As an actor looking at that, I could see that if it was me, I would have extreme difficulty buying into this idea because it's a little too grandiose and it's not justified super duper well. I applaud her a lot for her commitment to the role, but I do think that some moments fell flat because the suspension of disbelief just wasn't there. And that brings me to my next point. I think that this movie moved far too slow for the type of subject matter that we had and the type of movie that this movie was trying to be. It was almost 2 hours long, and it took so long to build up that we were not placed into this world that made us believe that this could happen. This is not a movie that is realistic, and it has subject matter based in reality, but is dramatized and horrorized for our viewing pleasures. But if you don't go into it thinking that, you could be very sorely disappointed in what you get, and it could feel stupid the entire time that you're watching it. Like, you could easily write it off. I was watching it with my family, and a couple of us were really into it and kind of saw what the movie was trying to achieve, and a couple of people completely disregarded it, thought it was the dumbest thing ever, and I could understand why, because the movie was not set up super well to me. So therefore, when all of the dramatic action started to happen, it all fell flat and it all felt not believable. Those killings. The killings were so poorly done that if you weren't trying to stay in it, you were immediately taken out of it by the execution of the murders. Like, I don't really even know how to speak to that, because was that a directorial choice? Was that a production choice? I do feel like there's a conversation to be had though about how well a killing via evil hair could have gone. It would have taken a creative genius and a team of creative geniuses to come together to make it happen to where that is believable. Because I wanted to believe in this narrative so much and I wanted to believe in this movie, I kind of let that slide and kind of like squinted my eyes when the killings were happening because I was trying to concentrate on the bigger picture here. It was really bad. Any horror movie should leave you feeling deeply disturbed, and that's how you know that a scene is executed really well. I was laughing at the murder scenes. And yes, it's a horror comedy, but when the horror happens, you want it to be a horrible action and not funny. That missed the mark for me completely. So let's have the conversation of good hair versus bad hair, because the movie is named Bad Hair and it's clearly a double entendre. However, it was never ever talked about during the movie. And what's also really interesting is that when she is presented with this potential for promotion, why was the idea of a relaxer never presented? And I think that there is this big conversation to be had about the amount of discomfort that Black women have when it comes to taking care of their own hair. If you grow up in a household where all you did was go to the salon, your mom goes to the salon, you grow up with a mama that has no idea what to do with your natural hair, then you are going to grow up as an adult and probably repeat those exact same trends to a point where you don't even recognize yourself with your natural hair. And again, I appreciate the movie for helping me to start this conversation, but the conversation was never had in the movie. And I do have to acknowledge that the movie can't have a million conversations in one. They decided to take a lane and stick to that lane, but I do have to address how odd it is that we never have a conversation about good hair versus bad hair, and that the meaning bad hair is only used because the hair itself is possessed and evil. We never talk about the fact that she has a 4C grade of hair, but she has it. The actress has it. So the audience is again to infer that not only does she have natural hair, she has bad hair. We just had this conversation also of the gentrification of natural hair. I like to have conversations, but I do have to acknowledge my privilege and where I sit in this conversation. I am someone that benefits from good hair, or the stereotypical use of the term good hair. That is not lost on me, and all of those stipulations definitely fall back on a very, very Eurocentric view of what is beautiful. Your natural hair is only considered beautiful if it's a certain grade of hair. Your natural hair is only considered beautiful if it is a certain length of hair, and even the person attached to it, if you don't have a certain look, then your natural hair isn't cute either. You have to have the look in order for all of it to work. And if you don't have that, then you're shunned for your natural hair. I appreciate this movie bringing up this conversation of hair in the workplace and Black women's relationship to their hair, but the conversation was never had in the movie. The last thing I want to talk about is this movie relevant? And I think that it is very much so relevant. When I was watching this, I was watching it with my family, and my sister and my mom felt as though natural hair is the route that everyone is going with, and that everyone is natural nowadays. And I would actually agree and disagree. I think that no one really gets relaxers anymore, sure, but I don't think that Black women wear their natural hair more now than ever. I would kind of argue that we wear it less now than ever. I think that we've adopted more African rooted styles in wearing bantu knots and box braids and twists and locks. I think that that has happened, but I do not think that Black women move towards wearing their natural hair out. Natural hair is a trend. Weaves, wigs, and extensions are forever. This movie can seem as though it's falling flat because of the execution. I think that the overall message behind it, and something that rings true when you strip away all the dramatic elements, is what Black women go through in order to have their hair done. Getting your hair done as a Black woman and having your hair done, it's like you can take on the world. You will spend your last, Anna spent her last, to get your hair done. You will go through pain, and I'm gonna do pain, to get your hair done. You will get poked. You will get prodded. You will have migraines. You will not be able to sleep on your hair. Whatever you have to do to have good hair is what Black women are conditioned to do, is what we are taught to do from a very young age. I'm having this conversation because I have watched this movie in a very analytical way, and I'm pulling from it what I know is there as an artist. But as a plain old viewer, oh baby, I could have wrote this off in 2 seconds, but there is important conversations being brought up here if you want to have them and if you want to see them. Y'all, that was a wild ride. That right there was a wild ride, and we are at the end of today's video. My final thoughts. This movie came out today, the day that I'm filming this. It just dropped. I tried my best not to look at any reviews, any articles, anything like that to get anybody else's opinion. because I really wanted to form my own. I tend to root for anything black. I think that there is a conversation to be had about black artists taking risks, because I feel as though black artists, the same with any profession, have to stay in a particular lane, and if we go outside of that, it's a problem. This conversation was ironically had by a bunch of prolific black artists, directors, producers within Hollywood on the show Black AF, which y'all dragged. The ability for black artists, producers, directors to take risks and to do things outside of the box that we have been placed in. And why is it that we are not allowed to do things that go outside of that box? Why aren't black artists allowed to make the same mistakes, risks, all of that as our white counterparts? So that's why I'm always root for this movie, because even if it was a flop, we are allowed to have flops. We are allowed to take creative risks and to do, Kenny JD here on YouTube calls it a hear me out movie. This very much so feels like a hear me out kind of movie. We are allowed to do that type of stuff, and I'm so tired of being put in a box and being told that we are not allowed to. Give it some consideration. Think about the things that we've talked about in this video today and watch it with a brand new set of eyes, and maybe you will gain some value out of it, because I thought that it was a very interesting movie. I had a cool conversation around it with my family, and I enjoyed my experience. It was a little weird, not the most well done, but creative decisions were made, creative decisions were stuck to, and I have no decision but to respect it. And with all that being said, that brings us to the end of today's video. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this one. I hope that you enjoyed it. I love talking movies and TV shows and getting analytical. It is my favorite. So if you guys would like me to talk about any more movies, then please let me know down below, and I will 100% do that. And I hope to see you very, very soon in my next video. Remember to keep positivity in your life, because positivity breeds positivity, and we have absolutely no time for negativity in 2020. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye. I'm gonna go to sleep.